Guitar Collector Guy presents Fender Stratocaster, getting rid of the bling. I dislike gold hardware on a guitar with a passion. I've been looking forever and a day, ever since I saw the movie with Will Ferrell called Stranger Than Fiction, where he gets a Seafoam Green Stratocaster. I've been on the lookout for one for myself. I've come close before. I finally found one, but of course somebody had put all these aftermarket gold parts on it. So I felt obligated to buy it and to take it and buy used original factory parts and put it back to the state that it should have been. That's this video. I guess the gold looked okay with this color of green, but it's just not me. It's kind of like when I see a car driving around with gold trim. It's just, I don't know why, it's just kind of off-putting to me. It turns out that these tuners were cheap knockoffs. They weren't the originals. And then to compound, so the tuners that I'm installing actually have the Fender logo on them, and they're supposed to be original Fender tuners. And I started to suspect that something was wrong with them because my driver didn't fit and I was having problems tightening down the nuts. And then the second thing that I noticed was they were very lightweight, and the washers were just flat washers instead of having the curvature that they're normally, so you have to figure out, which side is up and so on. They were also loose in the holes. If you like this video, click like, subscribe, and notify. So long story short, the tuners that I first put on the guitar were cheap knockoff copies from China. You have to be really careful, I guess, when you're on eBay and you're shopping for a bargain. I thought it was actually a pretty good price for a set of used tuners. It didn't really say that it was new or used. And I actually wanted used because I wanted, the hardware that I was putting on it to look like it had aged for the age of this guitar. Well, then when I started trying to tune, you could definitively tell the tuning pegs were smaller, and then there just wasn't the smoothness that you would find in a traditional Fender tuner. And I don't show it in this video, but I ultimately dug around on my stuff and found a complete set and replaced them out. And oh my God, first of all, the ones from Fender weigh twice as much. Very well made by comparison, and not loose. Everything fit just perfectly and actually snugly. And so on. So again, when you're on eBay, be really careful. Just because something says that it's Fender, unless it's genuine and you're actually getting it from an American company, there's a possibility that it's a knockoff part. And that's what I discovered. Kind of reminded me when I was in the military. I was in the Philippines and I bought a Seiko watch, supposedly, that I found in the store. And when I was on the transport plane back to the U.S., by the time I actually landed at Travis Air Force Base, I looked at my watch and the hands were just floating inside they had come off and so on. And it looked identical to a Seiko watch, but it wasn't. And that's actually what these were. They were just really, really cheap knockoffs. But so whoever had put the gold hardware on this thing, really went to pretty good extent. They literally replaced all of the screws, the strap buttons, everything on this thing. And so I felt like I was just kind of ejecting all of it and putting on original factory parts and so on. Something I did discover later on down the road also that I don't show in the video, but for the very second time in all the years that I've been kind of either working on guitars or building guitars, when I went to set up the string height, well, first of all, I had to adjust the neck relief by about a quarter of a turn counterclockwise. it needed more relief. It was really hard to actually fit the feeler gauge in there at first when I was testing. And then the next thing that I discovered was I was pretty much bottoming out when I was adjusting string height. When I was working, I had a break, and I actually ran back out to the bench, and I just couldn't let it rest. And I actually did have a 0.5 shim, and so I popped the neck off of it and put a new shim on it, and then bolted it down and adjusted it, and it actually adjusted perfectly then. So now the guitar is very playable, very adjustable, and has a lot of life left into it. Really love this color. Don't know why, other than, like I said, if you ever get a chance to see the Will Ferrell movie, Stranger Than Fiction, it is probably one of the funniest movies I've seen. It's not like anything he's ever done. It's about him hearing a voice narrating in his head about his life, and it's hilarious. And he kind of has a midlife crisis halfway through the movie and decides that he's always wanted to play guitar. So he goes out and buys a used, very beat up Seafoam Green Stratocaster. And I saw it and I wanted one as well. And I've looked for one ever since. And so that's kind of really what this is. It's not my midlife crisis, but it is me finally finding at least the color of guitar that I wanted. And it's a really nice, just kind of standard, Fender USA made Stratocaster, nothing fancy or anything like that. And now with all of the original chrome hardware and everything back on it, it's just kind of no frills, very playable guitar, and I'm very, very happy with it. So all serviceable, all the electronics and everything. I think out the door, I paid like $1,100 for it, and which I thought was a pretty good deal. I mean, these days you can pick up Strats used in that if you shop. And so the person that had this guitar before me, I think, pretty much had the bridge flat. And so I ended up having to loosen out about, quarter of an inch out. And then I was able to get the bridge, once tuned, sitting about 1/8 of an inch up. So for me, that's set just fine. Here's where I was measuring for the neck relief and found that there wasn't enough relief in the neck. And so I went and basically went counterclockwise, loosening and putting more of a bow in the neck. And so the strings then would set a little bit higher above the frets, not by much, but just enough to fit the feeler gauge in. And that's what I'm doing right here. And then I go and I measure again after making the adjustment. And I didn't have to make any more adjustments after that. The gap was just perfect. It was just literally right above the feeler gauge, above and below, so it wasn't necessary to adjust anymore. I'm trying my best to show good practice by doing tunings and measurements in the playing position. I am going to have to put a different camera angle in so you can actually see me like right here tuning properly. And so on, instead of seeing the top of my ever-graying hair head. And this is where, the string height I found was, for me to adjust it properly, it was sitting high. And I needed to literally almost bottom out the two E strings. And I did bottom them out, and it still was higher than where I normally would like it. And like I said, I kind of snuck back out in the garage, took off the strings, and took the neck off, and put a 0.50 shim in, and kind of put the neck back on. And that was all I really needed to do. Once I put it back on, I just had to set string height and adjust the saddles to the new angle of the neck with the new shim in. And it was a prefabricated shim. I had two sets that I had bought recently. One set, I had used the same size shim in a Telecaster that I had built, and there's a video on it out there. And then on this guitar is the second that I used. Measuring intonation on the guitar, I only found the Louis string needed to be adjusted. I did, and then it was fine after that and ready to play. Again, I ultimately did pull the strings back off and ended up having to do a lot more adjustment to the height of the saddles after I put in the shim. I checked intonation again after that, and as well as neck relief, and well, in the order of neck relief, string height, and then intonation. And I didn't have to do any adjustment after the shim with the neck relief, and I didn't have to do any intonation adjustment either. The only thing I had to adjust actually quite a bit was the height of the saddle. So I'm happy that I got my Stranger Than Fiction guitar. I'm happy also that I kind of saved it and put it back in to the world of not having to be so, I don't know, blinged out and with the silly gold hardware on it. And it's just not me. I like the simplicity of just this look. Matter of fact, to be honest with you, I like most of the time the brush chrome. If I could get it for all the hardware, I would. I think it just gives a guitar a very distinct and cool look. Thank you for watching Guitar Collector Guy. Really appreciate you being here. Hope you come back and watch more. If you like this video, click like, subscribe, and notify.